Hey, how's everyone doing tonight? Welcome to our reaction video for TLC that we just experienced tonight, and we've got to get our emotions the best of us after how it ended. For those of you who haven't watched, we'll try not to spoil it for a couple of minutes. We'll get to that one towards the end, but that was a killer emotional ending to say the least.
Mm-hmm.
But and also what a terrible way for me to lose my perfect pay-per-view. For anybody who watched our Top Rope spoilers earlier today, I was running a perfect pay-per-view all the way up until the final match, and then lost it in, honestly, probably the one match that I felt the most confident about.
Just like me in War Games, I was one away from a perfect pay-per-view. Now you know the feeling.
Yeah, it's a terrible feeling that we couldn't run it in the last one of the year, but let's drop over what happened. Opening with the WWE Championship match, TLC between Drew and AJ. The surprise being The Miz halfway through the match choosing to cash in Money in the Bank to make it a triple threat, only for Omos to end up kind of evening things out and ultimately leading to Drew ultimately retaining. I'm thrilled that Drew retained, and I said he would, but also at the same time, I'm a little irritated because
why?
Money in the Bank is supposed to be like one of the big sells every single year.
Mm-hmm.
And this year they used 9 months of storyline with Otis and Mandy, and Otis having the great upset victory. You then have the storyline of The Miz just completely tearing apart Otis's life. You break him up with Tucker. You break up his relationship with Mandy.
You send her to the other brand.
Exactly. And you do all of this.
Technically, you sent Tucker over there, too.
Yeah. And all of this is done for him to ultimately fail in his cash-in.
Well, not only that, he goes through the whole courtroom scene. He goes through the whole song. And
that was humorous. I'll give it that.
Try to go to get the briefcase. Got the judge on his side, which was JBL. All this build-up, and I feel like you took that build-up and you wasted it on one of your most, for me, and it's going to be biased, one of your most awesome superstars, and you did all that. And what for? I don't get it.
And then earlier in the year, they had Asuka win the women's Money in the Bank match, only for it to be used the next night to be the way to get the title off of Becky Lynch due to her pregnancy without Becky having to compete in or lose another match. So it was already irritating enough that you used one to change the women's division, but then you have all this months of storyline and everything else to ultimately have it be for nothing. The Miz doesn't even win his cash-in. But Drew retains. Drew continues on his run.
Congrats.
But, why continue the Money in the Bank premise if, it's supposed guaranteed victory and yet 3 out of the last 4 have failed?
But did anybody else see it, or was it just me? My boy, my man, my dude, AJ was, busted up on, I think the left side of his face, had a big gash or something.
Yeah, I'm sure your heart was crushed.
Or maybe it was just me and I was just seeing things. But either way, he had a gash on the side of his face. So, congratulations to Drew. I'm not taking nothing away from him. To The Miz, I'm sorry they wasted that much time and, trying to build you up to go for Money in the Bank, because this would have been the second time if he was successful to cash in. But I guess it's just a one and done. I don't know.
I don't know. It is what it is. So we continue through the pay-per-view. Sasha successfully retains over Carmella, keeping her wits among her. A game Carmella, a very good competitive match. Somalia getting himself involved as well. But ultimately, it's a game Sasha Banks getting herself out of a couple of predicaments and ultimately picking up the submission win to retain the SmackDown Women's title. New Raw Tag Team Champions. This guy right here projected it. So did you?
Yeah, I projected it too, and we kind of read reports she was coming back and whatnot. And
wrong tag. We were talking about Raw.
Oh,
we're getting there. Okay, although I guess technically both changed hands, but we're jumping a little ahead.
Congratulations to the Hurt Business. My bad. And I'm sorry, New Day, you kind of lost your titles, but knowing y'all are going to come after them and get them back again.
I'd said on Top Rope Spoilers, the Hurt Business, they had to have this one. If they want to make it serious, if they want to make this a serious business, no pun intended, they needed to win this one. They'd had multiple shots at the title. They needed to win this one, and they got it done. And how about that MVP at the beginning saying that Cedric Alexander was the shark that had been kind of swimming amongst the group. And in the end, he tags himself in and hits the lumbar check to be the one to get the pin. And while Shelton and MVP are like, hey, he got it done, but Cedric has built himself up to where they're turning him into the person I think we all hoped he would be. And what a great run they're doing with Cedric as the Hurt Business wins the Raw tag titles.
I had to hear about it from the other room. Thank goodness Steven likes to do play-by-play, but I was in the room changing, cashes at the time, so thank goodness.
Well, speaking of Raw Tag, you already kind of brought it up. We have new women's tag team champions as well. Asuka finding herself a partner, and what a royal partner it was.
Yeah, it was a queen. Empress and queen working together. Who would have ever thought that, huh?
And it leads to... something that we thought we'd see a couple of times earlier this year. She had multiple opportunities, but we now have not only Asuka 2 belts, as she is now both the Raw Women's Champion and half the tag champions, but then also at the same time, Charlotte not only wins the tag titles, but completes the career Grand Slam.
So that's pretty impressive. I mean, honestly, if she's going to go into the Hall of Fame, she pretty much just sealed the deal for her.
Right. If she wasn't a Hall of Famer yet, she locked it up tonight with winning the tag titles.
She's done everything, and, I've known there were storylines with her and her dad, but she didn't really want to be in a shadow. She was grateful for being a Flair, but she kind of tried to follow her own path, wanted to do her own thing. So I'm glad she came back. I'm glad she's recovered, and like we all said, everybody's been fine in the gym except for probably me and you. And she got
see that? This don't happen on accident. This is good holiday eating right here.
She got into shape, got everything she needed, and you could tell that, Nia and Shayna were kind of disgusted. You pretty much took out Lana to actually bring in a queen. Nothing against Lana either.
Yeah, well, Lana is no Charlotte yet.
Not
yet. She's got time. And then you move through the the remaining match. Kevin Owens absolutely giving everything he could give. And he was up front to Roman saying, you're going to have to kill me if you want to, you want to take me out. But at the end of the day, Roman didn't kill him. We maybe more on that in a minute here, but ultimately, just the numbers game, too much for Kevin, even with Jay interfering along the way. But the head of the table still at the head.
Owens tried to take Jay out real quick by injuring his ankle, his leg, his foot, whatever, putting his leg or ankle in the chair, trying to snap it.
The game plan was sound from Owens. He was ready.
He was ready. I mean, the thing that kind of disappointed me, but I guess you expect it from a heel Roman, is the low blow. Because there were like 2 or 3 times Owens could have had the title, had the belt, and would have been out of there. But
yeah, and I don't know. I mean, does anybody else, that watches this, is anybody else irritated about the fact that when you're at the top of the ladder and, you're standing there, you're clearly within reach of it, that, it just looks awkward that they have to sit there and wait on the person that is now late following their
spot.
They're late on their spot, because obviously, in a realistic match, obviously you'd grab the belt and go ahead and win, but you got to sit there, and it just looked awkward at times.
I mean, and now that I think about it, didn't that kind of happen to Ali too?
Ali was sitting at the top of the ladder when Brock won Money in the Bank a couple of years ago. And it happened to Naomi a couple of years ago with a women's title match as well, where she was at the top, and I believe it was Mandy or it was Dana Brooke. One of the two was late on their spot.
They didn't hit their spot.
So it just looks awkward when you're sitting up there. Can easily grab it, but you don't. And then, of course, we move to the end. If you didn't see it, you've had long enough to break away. The Firefly Inferno match ends up going to Randy Orton over The Fiend.
I said it. I said that.
Kia called it. I'll give her credit. She, it cost me my perfect pay-per-view, but I get the bonus point from Charlotte. So, I think I'm one ahead. We haven't done the math yet. But it's the way the pay-per-view ended that ends up being the case. With Randy Orton, of course, wearing his Legend Killer jacket. And that's a nice jacket. Hopefully it's available tonight on the shop. Ultimately setting the Fiend's physical body on fire. Hopefully it was, a scarecrow move or whatever.
Yeah.
But the reality is, to have them even portray the idea of setting a human being on fire, whether being a supernatural being or not, it shouldn't be unheard of. We had a match this year where somebody had to pop an eyeball out. So, I mean, it's not like this is anything new.
Did anybody that was watching or that saw it or will be seeing it Did you actually, when the Fiend started laughing, did anybody actually decide to laugh with him? Because the way he laughs just gets me to it gets me to crack up. It gets me to bring out like that evil laughter or something. So I don't know. Maybe it's just me.
Well, we've been saying for months that this is the best and most fierce Randy Orton that we think we've seen in his entire career. And at this point, it's going to take it to the next level because the legend killer persona now may have taken out the ultimate current legend in the Fiend, supposedly this unstoppable monster, and yet he found a way, truly by fire, to take out Bray Wyatt yet again. It probably means we're not going to see the Fiend and Bray for a little while, but when he comes back, it will be with a vengeance. So
now this is the second time we've seen Randy Orton. The first time was his whole entire house in his rocking chair in WrestleMania 33, am I correct?
Something like that.
And then it's tonight, and the Fiend, Bray went from that to, Bray to the Fiend, and then, he getting burnt up tonight. So I feel like it was a progression kind of happening. And I'm surprised Alexa didn't get involved tonight.
Well, and that's going to be curious is what now happens to Alexa. If the Fiend is supposedly gone or has been wiped out.
Is the mind control gone?
Right. Does Alexa return to normal? Does everyone the Fiend affected, or do they all return to normal? Or does the Fiend still live on and exist inside of Alexa? So Raw definitely has a storyline that they can run with, with Orton getting the upset win, and I'm going to call it an upset in basically the Fiend's own game. But what a fun way to end the year and what has been a very tumultuous year. A lot of fun champions out there and a lot of fun storylines. We now kind of enter into that 6-week lull period where, there's going to be about 6 or 7 weeks without a pay-per-view. We do get New Year's Evil for NXT here in a couple of weeks. But for the most part, it's going to kind of go into some quiet storylines as we get ready for the next pay-per-view, which would be the Royal Rumble, but that's not until the last day of January. So it'll be a little bit before we're back with any Top Rope spoilers or anything, but we'll see how it goes.
You mean I can actually get some sleep on the weekends for the next couple of weekends?
Sure looking that way.
Yay, yay.
But anyway, thank everyone for joining us for, actually all the pay-per-views we've done this year. Safe holiday, happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas, happy holidays all the way across.
Happy Kwanzaa.
Happy Kwanzaa. Whatever you celebrate. Exactly. We just wish you the best. We're gonna pop in one more time. We have an end of year special that we're planning on doing at the end of the year to kind of sum it all up. You're gonna see us at least once more before the end of 2020.
Actually, we've got 2 more things coming. We've got the end of the year thing, and I think we were trying to put together some blooper reels, and I'm going to go ahead and tell everybody I'm 95% of those blooper reels because I mess up more than Mr.
And I guess I have a plate exchange with Charlotte winning with Charlotte winning the tag titles. I guess I've got a plate exchange coming up soon now that we've got new tag champs. But
whoop, whoop.
So
now,
anyway,
how is Shayna and Nia gonna feel? I mean, they've been kind of
they're gonna be angry.
Well, we know Nia is. And the Queen came out like a cannon, like a ball straight out of a cannon. She was ready. She's been sitting and lying in wake for a couple of weeks, and she's been cleared for a minute. And she comes out, she looks phenomenal. She looks great.
Well, she found the gym.
She hit the gym. Andrade probably, helped her out in the process. I guess that's what the engagement life does for you, huh?
I got it. But anyway, thanks everyone for joining us. Hopefully you enjoyed TLC as much as we did. We'll be catching you guys a few more times for the end of the year, but happy holidays. We love you guys. We'll catch you later on.
Mwah.
Have a good night.